Gatorade or Perry and just how hard he hit. And my mama told me homecoming games are the best. On the banks of those late fall, late cartwheel sunsets. I wanted to be just like Jeff Davis when I grew up, tackling Seminoles and Bulldogs, playing football in the mud. So everybody sing Tiger Rag at the top of your lungs, and we'll party like it's 1981. Make those Death Valley lights shine brighter. And for good luck, we got Howard's Rock to beat the hell out of them old Gamecocks. It's a damn good day to be a Clemson Tiger. I feel really sorry for our sisters to the south, 'cause they come up here every other year and get punched in the mouth. Oh, and every home Saturday, it gives us the chills to watch those boys in orange run together down that hill. So everybody sing Tiger Rag at the top of your lungs, and we'll party like it's 1981. Make those Death Valley lights shine brighter. And for good luck, we got Howard's Rock to beat the hell out of them old Gamecocks. It's a damn good day to be a Clemson Tiger. Oh, somewhere up in heaven, Gaines Adams makes us sad. And that old Banks McFadden is the best damn running back. So everybody sing Tiger Rag at the top of your lungs, and we'll party like it's 1981. Make those Death Valley lights shine brighter. And for good luck, we got Howard's Rock to beat the hell out of them old Gamecocks. It's a damn good day to be a Clemson Tiger. It's a damn good day to be a Clemson Tiger. Everybody, damn good day to be a Clemson Tiger. Oh, yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. Pigskin Pete here. Happy Monday to everybody. Or Tuesday it is now. I don't even know what day it is. Of course, everybody knows Tuesdays are one of my favorite live streams to do because I'm shot out of a cannon after not being able to talk to you live on the air since Saturday's football game. Lots to talk about today. Lots to talk about from last week. Some big shakeups in college football. Lots of great games this week. Of course, there's a lot of bye weeks this week, starting this week, and that's always frustrating. But anyways, let's see who is in the chat real quick, and then we'll get into all this. Phil Swift's grandfather, he says first, good afternoon, Phil Swift's grandfather. Christian Ballard, good afternoon, sir. Volunteer Roadshow, Catfish, what's up, man? Hey, Catfish, are you doing better, man? I know you're back on the road. I saw that video. Glad that you're back on the road. And of course, I'm glad that you're checking in with me here today. James, the James Gang Rock and Roll Hughes. I'm just going to call you James because that's easier, sir. And I'll get to your question in a second. DeGoat Watson, good afternoon, sir. Dennis Wilson, how are you, sir? Welcome to the stream. I'm sure if you're here, you're amazing and fantastic. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. James asks, can you tell me, has there ever been a team as great as the Alabama Crimson Tide? Are you talking about historically, or are you talking about this year? That's what I want to know. I did just see Alabama give up 31 points to Arkansas. Billy Dawson, good afternoon, sir. How you doing? Yeah, so speaking of the Alabama giving up 31 points to Arkansas, that was one of the things that was pretty shocking this weekend. I don't think anybody saw that coming. I certainly didn't. Of course, LSU losing to Florida. I guess that's not that big of a shocker. I mean, at least it's not to me. I figured, I said that I thought that even though LSU got out to a strong start there, that they were probably going to finish the season right around 8-4, 9-3, and I still think that's going to happen. I mean, they got a tough road ahead of them coming up. They got to play Auburn, which we'll talk about Auburn too if you want, Georgia and Alabama here in the next 3 weeks. Texas A&M beating Kentucky. I called that one. No big shocker there. South Carolina having to kick a field goal at the end of the game to beat Missouri. No big shocker there. What else happened this weekend that was shocking and amazing? DeGoat Watson says, I still think LSU beats Georgia this weekend. I think there's a good chance of that. So let me go through some of these games this week. We've got Tennessee and Auburn. Auburn minus 16.5. That game's in Auburn. Forget the spread. I think that I still think that Tennessee wins an SEC game. I don't think this is it. I think Tennessee either beats South Carolina or Vanderbilt or both. But I still think they'll beat one of those two teams. Georgia and LSU. We were just talking about that one. So yeah, this is a big time game for Georgia. Georgia doesn't have much to lose from this, not as much as LSU does. LSU fans still have some sort of hopes and dreams of winning the SEC, even though I don't think that's going to happen. But for Georgia can lose this game. That doesn't change anything for them. Georgia wins the East and then has a chance to knock somebody off, most likely Alabama, in the SEC championship game. They still have everything in front of them, whether or not they lose this game. So, being that it's a bigger game for LSU than it is Georgia, I think that does not look good for Georgia. But at the end of the day, I still think Georgia's a better team. But LSU is a tough place to play. I will be broadcasting that game. That's a good time to go ahead and announce this. I will be doing – that is the game I picked for this week. So, I think it's at 3:30 Eastern time on CBS. So, everybody check in with me for that. That should be a fun one. I'm looking forward to doing that game, live play-by-play and reaction. And the finisher. Good afternoon, the finisher. How you doing, sir? Eric Birch. What's up, buddy? Bobby Boy. Good afternoon, sir. He says, who is your 4 in the playoffs? Very tough. Very tough to talk about that this time of year. But I'll go ahead and oblige you, sir. I'm going to say Alabama, obviously. I still think Alabama is the best team in the SEC. And the winner of the SEC is definitely getting in the playoffs. So, Alabama. I believe that Ohio State will win the Big Ten with 1 or fewer losses. And I think that's an automatic bid into the playoff. I don't see anybody on on Ohio State's schedule for the rest of the year that is a really big threat. Don't talk to me about Michigan. They've already beat their biggest threat, which was Penn State. I just don't see Ohio State losing the Big Ten now that they've got Penn State head-to-head. So that's 2 teams. Obviously, I still think that Clemson's going to get in there. So that's 3. Notre Dame is the X factor here, right? And then you've got Texas and Oklahoma out of the Big 12. And then Washington. I'm trying to think of who else out of the Pac-12 even has a chance. I guess Washington. I guess you could still put Oregon in that conversation. They play this weekend, so that'll decide that. Anyway, so at this point, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and the 4th one I will put in right now. I want to say Notre Dame so bad, but the fact that they don't have a conference championship game means they need to go undefeated. I think that Notre Dame's going to lose 1 game. They'll be favored in every game they play. They should win every game they have on their schedule. Still very hard to go 12-0. I think Notre Dame drops 1 game. So I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to pick Texas for the simple fact that they had the head-to-head over Oklahoma. And Oklahoma has just fired their defensive coordinator, and West Virginia might have something to say about that. But I think Texas wins the Big 12 with 1 loss and makes the playoff. There's my hot take for the day. Now ask me next week, and I'm sure my opinion will have changed by then. You should have did the Miami-Florida State game because it was a great comeback, says Dennis Wilson. Mark Dudley. Good afternoon, Mark Dudley. How you doing, sir? Will Jones. How you doing, sir? Volunteer Roadshow says, I hope Ohio State makes it into the playoffs so delusional Paul shuts up. Miranda Dansby, good afternoon. Welcome to the stream. Texas did lose to Maryland. I understand that. But if Texas wins out in the scenario that I'm saying, they will have wins over how many different top 15, top 10 teams? TCU is one of them. West Virginia would be another at the time they play them. Oklahoma last week. And then, of course, a Big 12 title game over another highly ranked team. So Texas's resume, if they go 11-1 or 12-1 and win the Big 12, is plenty good enough to get in. I think a one-loss Big 12 champ gets in. That's all there is to that. Okay, so whether that's West Virginia or Texas or even Oklahoma at this point, because Oklahoma could still win out, I mean, technically, even though I don't think they have the defense to do that, but they could. They have the offense to do it. So, yeah. Catfish says, before the season started, I had Georgia, Michigan, Clemson, and Texas. Those are four solid picks other than Michigan. I haven't been a believer in Michigan before the season, haven't been a believer in Michigan now, and I'm not going to be a believer in Michigan come playoff time. I don't think Michigan gets in. I think Michigan probably catches 2 more losses, at least. Hey, Jim Harbaugh. Good afternoon, sir. I was just talking about you, sir. I don't think 2 SEC programs are going to get in either this year, Will Jones. There would be a lot that would have to happen for that to happen. And Notre Dame is the main reason why. And we may actually see 2 undefeated, possibly even 3 undefeated teams at the end of the season, which we haven't seen before. The most we've ever seen at the end of the season is 1 undefeated team. Clemson did it once and then lost the national championship game, and Alabama did it once and they lost the national championship game. Very hard to go undefeated, let alone have 3 teams that do it. And that will be the reason that two teams from one conference will most likely be left out if there's multiple undefeated conference champions. Yeah, I'm talking about in the playoff era. And so that reminds me. Hold on. Before I get into this, let me go into the rest of these games real quick. Where did I started at? I left off at Georgia and LSU. So Miami and Virginia. A lot of people are saying that's a trap game for Miami. I mean, I guess you could consider it to be a trap game, but come on. I still see Miami winning that one. Virginia Tech and North Carolina. Now, this is the lock of the week. Now, I didn't have time yesterday to make a video doing my Vegas picks. But if I had to pick one game the entire week this week, as far as betting against the spread, Virginia Tech and North Carolina. Virginia Tech is only favored by 5.5 points. Now, North Carolina is terrible. Now, I realize that Virginia Tech lost to Old Dominion, and then they got completely drug by Notre Dame last week. But Virginia Tech is miles and miles ahead of North Carolina. No matter which way you look at it. So at 5.5 points, I'd take Virginia Tech all day and twice on Saturday. So if you got any money, put it down on that one. Missouri and Bama. What is the line on that? Almost 30 points or something? I mean, I wouldn't touch that game with a 10-foot pole, especially since Alabama gave up 31 to Arkansas, and they also have an injured. Probably their best defensive back on the team is injured. Still, at the end of the day, Missouri has no defense, so Bama could score 60 without blinking on Missouri. It's going to be a shootout. Anyway, Bama's winning that game without a problem. I wouldn't touch the spread though. Wisconsin and Michigan. Now I have a problem. I voiced my problem with this the other day. Somebody's channel, can't remember. Maybe it was Uncle Lou. With game day going to Michigan and Wisconsin instead of Georgia and LSU. Now listen, I don't really care where game day goes. I mean, it's not going to Clemson, so I could care less. But you have a team in Wisconsin that got beat by BYU. I mean, somehow people are still considering Michigan to be some sort of threat, even though I don't see it. I mean, yeah, they lost. They only have one loss, Pete. They only got one loss, and they still have everything ahead of them. They still got to play Ohio State and Penn State. Yeah, well, they have one loss, and They had to come back from 17 points down to beat Northwestern. Listen, folks, Michigan's not a contender. I'm sorry, they're not. Their offense, them and Auburn have the two most disappointing offenses, for preseason top 10 favorite teams. Anyway, Michigan's favored by 7.5. How about this little fun fact? Jim Harbaugh is 1-8 versus top 15 teams. 1-8. But yet, somehow, Michigan still favored by over a touchdown. If I was going to bet that game, I'd bet Wisconsin. So, anyway, where did I leave off here? Somebody asked me about something. I've got the memory of a cockroach. Anyway, I forgot what I was going to say. Obviously, Clemson is on a bye this week. There's a lot of teams on byes this week. But for all the people out there who've been telling me, well, since week 1, how Clemson has a soft schedule, how Clemson's, soft, close wins against everybody, how Clemson's not going to play a ranked team all year. Well, turns out NC State and Clemson both have bye weeks this week, but they meet in Death Valley. Clemson, a week and a half from now, 2 weeks from now. Both undefeated. NC State's ranked in the top 20. Just like I said. Over the summer, I went on to Uncle Lou's show. He had me on his show to preview Clemson's season. We went through the entire Clemson schedule. In that preview, we got to NC State. I said, I considered NC State to be the biggest threat to Clemson in the ACC. Not only in the ACC, but in the Atlantic Division. We're in the same division. I also said that there was a very high likelihood that when we met in Week 8, that both teams would be undefeated. Well, here we are, going into Week 7 with byes for both teams, both undefeated. So this is a huge game for both teams. I think this is going to be the best team that we've played all year. With no disrespect to Texas A&M, I think Texas A&M is a really good team too. But NC State, like I've said over and over again, has a dangerous quarterback, Ryan Finley. Ryan Finley last year led the ACC in every single quarterback stat you can think of, as far as passing efficiency, completion percentage, plays over 20 yards. You name it. He's an NFL quarterback. He'll probably either be somewhere between the first and third overall quarterback taken in the draft. And NC State always plays Clemson tough. So that is a game that every Clemson fan, at least I do. I always had that game circled on my calendar. And this year is no exception, especially considering the stakes of this game. Let me see what you guys are talking about before I get into my next thing here. I got another point I want to make. LSU dad going for NC State. I'm going NC State. Who cares what LSU dad says? LSU dad also had LSU beating Florida, didn't he? Hello, Comic Dude 45. How you doing, sir? Good afternoon. Welcome to the stream. I'm sure if you're here, you're amazing and fantastic. Yes, thank you, Tiger Nation, for reminding me. I always forget to do this. So I set a goal of October 15th, which, let me do the math here, 6 days away from now, so next Monday, to hit the 1,000 subscriber mark. I want to thank everybody who's been sharing, liking. Go ahead and do that now if you haven't done it. Hit the like button and also share it on Twitter or Facebook or whatever social media you participate in. And I set a benchmark for the 15th, which would be my 1 year anniversary since my first video was posted on YouTube, to hit 1,000 subscribers. We're getting close, folks. I don't. It's somewhere over 900. I didn't check it today to see exactly where it was at. Somewhere around 905, 910, something like that. So very, very doable between now and next Monday to hit that mark. I'm going to need everybody's help to do it, and I think we can do it. So please do your part. Like, subscribe, and of course watch. That's always important too. What do I think? Tiger Matt, good afternoon, sir. What do you think of LSU dad? I think he's annoying as crap, says Tiger Mac. What I mean, hey, listen, LSU dad is an LSU homer, and so I mean I don't have any problem with that. I'm a Clemson homer. It is what it is. So, you know, I'm not going to hate on the guy. I don't have a problem with him. Hold on, I just saw something I want to address there. Dennis Wilson, N'Kosi Perry is better than Trevor Longhair Lawrence by miles. Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see about that, sir. What's up, George? How you doing, man? TTD Tyler says, bench Stidham and fire Gus. Well, I don't know about you. First of all, you're not firing Gus unless you want to pay him, a king's ransom, which you're not going to do. I mean, whoever's decision it was to give this guy the massive raise and extension last year, that's all on them. Anyway, Gus is going to be there for at least a few more years, so you're going to have to deal with that. As far as Stidham goes, I don't know. Is Stidham the problem? I mean, or is just the overall offense the problem? I mean, I'm not sure Stidham is the problem. And by the way, anytime you talk about benching a guy like Stidham, I mean, who's the guy behind him? Now, as far as I know, the guy behind him could be better than him. I don't know. Somebody who's an Auburn fan tell me. I couldn't tell you the guy's name, who's behind him. I couldn't tell you what state he was recruited from. I couldn't tell you how many stars he has behind his name. I couldn't tell you a single thing about him. So maybe you tell me that. It would be the better question. But Gus isn't going anywhere, so you just have to deal with that, unfortunately. Real Gamecock boy. One wrong hit, Trevor is done. He ain't got SEC hit enough. So what happened to your quarterback last week, real Gamecock boy? Apparently he's not cut out for the SEC either. I mean, the guy has, maybe the worst quarterback stats of any highly touted quarterback in the entire SEC since he's come into the SEC. What a massive, massive disappointment that guy's been. What a joke Jake Bentley is. And believe me, he can't stay healthy either. I mean, what happened? Where was he at last week? I mean, the guy has more interceptions against Clemson than he has touchdowns, sir. Against an ACC team. Yeah, to go Watson, I'm not going to even get into that strength of schedule thing. I mean, look, the bottom line is you can go through all these people, whether it's Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, right? Those are the top 4 teams in the AP right now. You know how I feel about the AP. I mean, the AP, is as meaningless as any poll in America. But it is what it is, right? People want to talk about it, so we'll talk about it. Let's go through. You go through game by game on any 4 of their schedules, and put Notre Dame in there too if you want. They're number 5, I think. There's no difference in strength of schedule between those schools, between who they played so far, between all these weeks. All right, and then you look at teams like Wisconsin. I mean, he lost to BYU. I mean, so good teams win games. You can say whether you blew them out or whether or not it was close. Doesn't matter. You win games. 6-0 is 6-0 is 6-0. That's the difference between good teams and great teams. Good teams win a lot of games. Great teams win every game, even the close ones, especially the close ones. And I believe that Clemson is just getting better. And I'm not going to even go off the fact that we blew Wake Forest off the map and embarrassed them. I mean, I'm not surprised about that. I don't know who is. But that leads me to my next point. You can see it in the title here. Talk about now. I'm going to get right into being a Clemson homer real quick. So anybody who can't stomach a Clemson homer being a Clemson homer, then you're about to be very disappointed. Why is Travis Etienne not being considered for the Heisman? Now, I'm not saying Travis Etienne should be number 1 in the Heisman, 2 or 3 in the Heisman race or whatever, but you're not even hearing anybody mention this guy. But somehow Jonathan Taylor is still somehow considered in the Heisman race. Let me read you some stats here. Travis Etienne through 6 games this year. 83 carries for 762 yards, 11 rushing touchdowns, 1 receiving touchdown, and 9.2 yards per carry on average. That leads the nation. Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin. Great running back, by the way. 126 carries, which in my estimation is almost 50 more carries than Travis Etienne's had so far. 50 more carries. 849 yards on the ground, which is only 80 more yards with 50 more carries. 6.7 yards per carry, which is 3 yards less per carry on average than Etienne. Only 8 touchdowns compared to 12 by Etienne. Damian Harris, Alabama. Another guy that was a preseason dark horse Heisman contender. 361 yards, 3 touchdowns. Myles Gaskin from Washington, another preseason Heisman hopeful. 554 yards, 5 touchdowns, 4.5 yards per carry. Half the yards per carry as Etienne, less than half the touchdowns. A.J. Dillon, the guy I said was the dark horse to win the Heisman before the season. So what most people consider to be the best running back in the ACC by a long shot, and maybe up there with Jonathan Taylor as far as the best back in the country. 106 carries, which is 25 more carries than Etienne. 652 yards, 6 rushing touchdowns, 1 receiving touchdowns. So Etienne splitting carries, by the way, with 3 other backs, 2 in particular, a lot of them, is blowing all these other backs off the map. But somehow, I haven't heard a whisper, a peep, nothing about him being in the Heisman conversation. Now, the Heisman conversation is always dominated by quarterbacks, and I get it. Listen, Tua is number 1 on that list and should be. He's putting up video game numbers out there. Justin Herbert, another one. Listen, there's 2 or 3, 4 quarterbacks that you can all talk about. But as far as running backs go, I don't want to hear anybody mention Jonathan Taylor or any of these other guys on the Heisman list without putting number 9 from Clemson ahead of them. Let's see what you guys are talking about. Good afternoon, David Johnson. How you doing, sir? Mark Richt almost choked on an applesauce. Okay. Yeah, I saw Drew Brees broke the record last night. Bad play calling, but it was good to see Perry step up and get that win. Yeah, that was a tough win for Miami. I mean, I thought you guys were going to lose that game. I mean, I think most of America thought you were going to lose that game. What were you down 27-7 at one point? And Florida State does what Florida State does and folded. I was actually happy to see Miami get that win. I don't like Florida State, but anyway, good win. Etienne has better stats than Henry, who won the Heisman over Deshaun Watson. Yes. Thank you, sir. Great point. I mean, the guy's going to have to rush for 3,000 yards and 80 touchdowns for anybody to mention his name. I mean, he absolutely dominates and destroys every single – I mean, this isn't just this year he's been doing this. Last year as a true freshman, he was averaging 10 yards a carry. I mean, he's just dominating. What about Trace McSorley? Yeah, no, I think he's definitely on the list. Trace McSorley should be on the Heisman list. And I realize they lost to Ohio State, but that was not Trace McSorley's fault. Trace McSorley balled in that game. I love watching him play. He's one of the most exciting college football quarterbacks in the past 4 or 5 years. Delta Charlie, good afternoon, sir. Welcome to the stream. I'm sure if you're here, you're amazing and fantastic. Otherwise, you would not be here. If Tua stays healthy, he will win in a landslide. Yeah, I think so too. Florida State sucks. I'm done with this conversation, says Tiger Mac. Dennis Wilson, sir, that's not even good trolling. You're usually a good troll, but don't make ignorant statements like that. Travis Homer is better than Travis Etienne. I mean, come on. Don't make me pull up Travis Homer's stats. They're probably not even as good as the other guys on this list that Etienne's smoking already. Blake Ellis, good afternoon, sir. Yeah, I just don't. I don't get it. I don't get why I'm not hearing his name. Every list I see, every time it comes on TV and they post the top 5 or 10, you don't see his name on the list. But you see Jonathan Taylor on the list. And I just read the stats. It's not even close. Not only that, just watch the games. Nobody has ever shut Etienne down. As a matter of fact, he takes over games. There's been several games this year where Jonathan Taylor has been shut down. And Taylor's a great back. Don't get me wrong. I'm not hating on him. All right. Hey, Catfish, man. Take it easy, man. I appreciate you stopping in. Be careful out there. And that goes without saying at this point. Diggle Watson, did I see the Clemson hate from Colin? Yeah, I did a whole video on it. I did a video on it last week. And that's not surprising to me. I mean, whatever. He's the biggest joke. I mean, the guy knows nothing about college football. That's apparent. Daniel Abrandy, good afternoon. Welcome to the stream. Great question. Justin Herbert, the real deal or not? Yes, Justin Herbert is the real deal. Justin Herbert is going to be a highly drafted quarterback in the NFL. He's got it all. He's big. He's got an NFL arm. He's accurate. He can move. He's very, well, I was going to say he's Marcus Mariota-esque, but I think he's better than Mariota. He's definitely a better passer than Mariota, and there's no question about that. I think he's bigger than Mariota, and he's just as good of a runner as Mariota. So, yes, he's the real deal. He'll be an NFL starting quarterback. Herbert will. This just in, Jake Bentley and Mark Rozier claim the other quarterbacks aren't really as good as they were. Chad Mulligan, good afternoon, sir. He says, I don't think Clemson's running back has a chance to even be considered for the Heisman when he played against good defenses. He barely got 44 yards and 66 yards. Not good enough now. Over 100 per game, maybe. I mean, I just read the stats, sir. He's got fewer carries than all these other running backs, more yards, more touchdowns, and more yards per carry. Almost 10 yards average per carry this season and last season, both. I mean, I don't know. If he's not going to be considered for it, then there's no running backs being considered for it because he's blowing them all off the map in every category. That's my point. If you just want to say, why don't we just make the Heisman a quarterback trophy? I mean, what are we talking about here? What's up, the Toxic Mixer? How you doing, sir? Good afternoon. Damn shame the news about Richards is, which one's Richards? Are you talking about the guy who broke his neck or whatever? Yeah, that's terrible. I think that's who you're referring to. Yeah, you guys are still talking about Colin Cowherd. The guy's a joke and an embarrassment. I mean, the guy loves West Coast teams, and that's fine. I got no problem with him being a West Coast homer at all, as long as you admit it. Okay? I mean, I admit what I am. I'm a Clemson homer, and I'm an ACC homer. I admit it. But don't pretend like you're somehow objective and make crazy asinine statements that are borderline retarded, to be honest with you. That's what Colin Cowherd is. He's a good broadcaster, right? I mean, because he I guess what he thinks he's doing is getting being edgy or something, but he's not. He just looks stupid. The ACC's best wide receiver, Amon Richards. Yeah. Well, yes, as far as I know who you're talking about. Yes. Blake Ellis. We don't get no respect. We earn it the hard way. I almost prefer it that way, sir, to be honest with you. I mean, as a Clemson fan, I like the disrespect. I like the fact that everyone says that we're a weak, soft team and we play a weak, soft schedule and this and that, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, all we do is win. Meanwhile, I've gone over the stats a million times, over the past 8 years. If we were a weak, soft team, we wouldn't be where we are. But I like the hate, and I think the team feeds off of the hate. And I think if you were actually to sit down and talk with any Clemson player on that roster, they would tell you that they like the hate. I know the coaches like the hate, right? Nick Saban would love for Alabama's team to get all the hate instead of all the praise. The whole rat poison thing. So it is what it is. I like it. Good question to Goat Watson. Any chance that College Game Day goes to Clemson and NC State? There's a very good chance. It's really going to depend on. I was looking through the schedule that week, and there's a couple of other games that could certainly get considered for that. There's an SEC game in particular. Which one am I thinking about? Is it maybe LSU and Auburn? Anyway, so that'll be an undefeated matchup at Clemson, number 20 NC State, and whatever Clemson's going to be ranked. I don't know, 3 or 4, whatever. Doesn't matter. So yeah, there's a very good chance that could happen. It's really going to depend on whether or not some of these who loses in these other games this week. That determines that. But I'd say about a 50-50 shot of that. Yeah. Yeah, Joel Klatt. He might be worse. Can't stand him. Chad Mulligan's still going on about Travis Etienne. He wants me to read each individual game for Clemson's running back. The Heisman is not a one-game award, sir. It's a season-long award. Ace Outlaw says, I respect Clemson and love your coach. He's always showed respect to Miami. Thank you, sir. Chad Mulligan, again, Clemson uses 5 running backs too. We use 4 very heavily during every single game. Again, I just read it to you. Etienne has less carries than every other person on this list. But more yards, more touchdowns, and more yards per carry. I mean, I don't know how to be any more clear than what I've already been. Pete, would you go to College Game Day show if they decide to pick Clemson versus NC State? So I won't be going to that. And the reason is, I don't know if I already said this. I was scheduled to go to the NC State game next week. Those plans got changed. However, I will be going the next week, or 2 weeks after that, November 2nd, to the Louisville game. I will be attending the Louisville game with none other than Prince 6'1", Bobby Durkins, and Tiger Nation from the comments section. So, November 2nd, Louisville game. I will be at that. But no, I won't be able, unfortunately, to go to the NC State game. Not by my doing, but something changed with the tickets. So, Christian Ballard says, Pete, you need to sign a contract with ESPN and get your own talk show. Okay. Well, I've yet to hear from ESPN, so they haven't offered me a contract. Hey, Blake, you're going to be at the Louisville game? Well, we're all going to be tailgating together. Me, Bobby Durkins, and the guys I just named, Prince 6'1", Tiger Nation. My wife's going. And, yeah, so anybody who's going to be there, anybody who lives in the area or is going to be going to that game, yeah, contact me through Twitter. At Pete Pigskin is my Twitter handle. And, yeah, we'd love to meet up. We'll be tailgating for a while before the game, so we can hang out. Anybody who's going to be there for sure. And I'm sure I'll be doing some live streaming from there as well. Move the ACC championship game to Florida will do better numbers, says David Johnson. Yeah, I doubt that's going to happen. I don't know whether or not it would do better numbers. I mean, see, first of all, Charlotte is is where the ACC headquarters is. That's where it's based out of. Number one. Number two, it's sort of a central location when you talk about you've got Miami being the southernmost ACC team, Boston College being the northernmost. I mean, Charlotte's right smack in the middle of that. And so I don't know. I don't know if it'd do better numbers or not. What's up, Prince 6'1"? Good afternoon, sir. I'm just talking about you. Strange days. Clemson always gets shafted with the Heisman. Deshaun clearly should have won. Yeah. I don't think there's any doubt about that Deshaun should have won one of those years. He was the best player in the country. But, you know, whatever. It's a popularity contest, and it's a stat contest is what it is. I mean, is Lamar Jackson a better quarterback than Deshaun Watson? I mean, the answer to that is clearly no, but he was a one-man show. It was the Lamar Jackson show. He was the only really great player on that team, and when you are that, you put up video game type numbers, you're gonna win the Heisman. It is what it is. Chad Mulligan, I don't know what you don't understand about everything I just said. He leads the country as far as running back goes in every single category. So I want you to tell me then. I want you, since you've got it all figured out, since you pulled up one single game and told me how many yards he got, name me a running back in the country right now who deserves to be in the Heisman race ahead of him. I'll wait. N'Kosi Perry is better than Deshaun Watson. What's what are Snell's numbers? How many I didn't look up Snell. That's actually probably one. That's probably David Johnson. That probably is actually one that's up there with his. I don't know. I didn't look at those. Well, I do know that Snell, and going off of Chad Mulligan's logic, it got shut down last week. I mean, what did the guy have, like 1 yard per, 2 yards per carry? Etienne is Gallman and Spiller combined. Yeah, he's got the speed and the power, You're right. They never took Lamar out of the game. That's why the backup sucks. What's up? I don't want to say your name wrong. I'm just going to say Davin. Is that how you pronounce your name, Davin? Davin, right? Yeah, he must be a Miami fan. He's asking all the other Miami trolls to stop making Miami look bad. Listen, Davin, Dennis Wilson has been making Miami look bad since probably the 80s. So it is what it is. But we all know that he's just a troll, and so we take what he says with a grain of salt. I actually like Dennis Wilson. He's very entertaining. I don't think there's any doubt about that. What's up, Martin Dubé? He says, sorry to hear about C.J. Spiller. No, not C.J. Spiller, C.J. Fuller. But thank you. Yeah, Spiller's okay. C.J. Fuller is the one that sadly passed away last week. Yeah, Prince 6 foot. When I was just talking about that, sir, I was letting everybody know that we'd be at the Louisville game, and anybody who's going to be in the area to come hang out with us. Yeah, Blake Ellis says he might be at that game too. So. Blake Ellis says, I think Lamar will do great in Baltimore, better than Flacco. I don't know about that. I'm not so sure what's going to happen with Lamar as far as the quarterback position goes. He went into the draft saying that he refused to play anything other than a quarterback. He refused to be drafted as anything other than quarterback. And when they drafted him, they came out and made a statement. They said he is a quarterback, and that's what we intend on him being. Meanwhile, that's not what they've been using him as. I mean, he comes in there and like a running back or doing the Wildcat, or he's played more plays at receiver in the slot than he has at quarterback. Now I don't know. I'm not saying that in the future that's they may do something different, but I don't know. I say. The chances of Lamar being the starting quarterback in Baltimore in the near future are pretty slim, I think. Yeah, I'd say he's a good backup. I don't know if he'll be a starter or not. Yes, Tiger Mac, thank you. I saw that. Martin Dubé, are you worried about quarterback's depth at Clemson? In the short term or the long term? In the short term, I would say, and when I say short term, what I mean is as in this year. As in this year, yes, because obviously with us having how many guys that we have transferred this year, 3 or 4, anyway, at least 3, right? So Hunter Johnson left, Tucker Israel left, Kelly Bryant left. And there's another one too. What's his name? Anyway, you get what I'm saying. So we lost 4 quarterbacks this year alone. So yes, if something happened, God forbid, to Trevor, that put him out for any extended period of time, that could be a problem. Now, I do feel much better after seeing that Chase Bryce is at least capable enough a quarterback to win games. But let's be honest here. There's not really a comparison between Trevor and Chase. They're just not. So, yeah, that worries me a little bit. Now, as far as after this year, no. I mean, Clemson recruits 4- and 5-star quarterbacks like nobody's business. And that's why we have so many of them leaving, is because when you're recruited as a 5-star quarterback, you don't want to sit on the bench year after year. So the recruiting is not a problem. I don't know if that answers your question or not. Yes and no. I'm not worried about it in the long run. I am worried about it this year. It's Eric Cooper. That's right. Thank you. What's up, Wrong on Purpose? The artist formerly known as Drake Luke. Hey, man. Is Oregon going to beat the brakes off of Washington this week or what, sir? I'm rooting for Oregon to win that game for you. I mean, I don't have a dog in the fight, and I'm not a fan of either team. But I really, you know who I am a fan of? A big-time fan. As of this year, from what some of the Oregon games I've watched, Justin Herbert. He's awesome. I love watching him play. I think the guy's a baller and a winner. And I think that, unfortunately, Oregon got completely robbed by bad coaching decisions in that Stanford game. Oregon whooped Stanford's ass up and down the field for 3.5 quarters and still lost that game. I mean, what a heart-wrenching loss for an Oregon fan. Oregon's good. Oregon is a very good football team. I think that Oregon might possibly be the best team in the Pac-12 this year. And we'll find out this weekend because the two best teams are going to be playing each other this year. This weekend, I mean, in Oregon and Washington. College Football Maniac, good afternoon, sir. South Carolina fan in here. He wants to see the Bentley stay on the bench. I agree, sir. I mean, obviously, you're a very smart South Carolina fan. There aren't very many of those. But, yeah, I mean, he played great. He played better than Bentley has all year. Bentley's just not that good, people. I don't know when people are going to – I mean – the first year, they were like, oh, the guy's like 15 years old. I mean, right, he enrolled at South Carolina before he hit puberty. Oh, he needs a couple years, right? Well, second year comes out still average, right? Last year, which was his second year, everyone was coming down and saying Kelly Bryant, was not a good passer. Kelly Bryant had better stats passing-wise than Jake Bentley did. Then going into the third year, I mean, listen, he's gone through puberty now, right? He's been at South Carolina for 3 years now. And what does he have, like 6 touchdowns and 5 interceptions? I mean, terrible. I mean, the worst quarterback in the SEC, or one of the worst. He might be the worst. How he continues to be the starter is beyond me. I don't understand it at all. But being a Clemson fan, I could care less. I hope they start him the rest of this year, and I hope they bring him back next year too, so he can continue to lose. SC Tiger fan 803. Hey Pete, I will be at that game as well. Be the wife's first game in Death Valley. Awesome, man. She'll the first game in Death Valley. It will be an amazing experience for her. And if you want to come hang out with us and do some tailgating before the game, I'll try to announce before we go about where we'll be, or at the very least, what I'll do is give an update while we're out there and let people know where we're at. All I got to do is turn on my iPhone and do a stream and say, hey, we're over here, and anybody who wants to come over can come over. So, yeah, awesome, sir. Yeah, you guys are talking about Bentley's dad being the running backs coach. Well, guess what? Fire his dad, because they don't have a running game either. I don't know who's worse, the son at playing quarterback or the dad at coaching running backs. Bench the son, fire the dad. Problem solved, move on. Either that or Coach Boom can start looking for a new job sometime in the near future. Bring back Connor Shaw. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Dabo's got 2 kids that play on the team, but you don't see him starting them just because they're his kids. They're not starters, right? I mean, one of them is who is it? Will, the older one. He's a damn, the hat's hitting the microphone. He's the holder, which is a good holder. He's a wide receiver, but you don't see him starting his son over Justin Ross, who's a true freshman, do you? No, because Justin Ross is a better wide receiver. I think it's a bundle deal. Bentley and father, bad contract. Yeah, well, it is what it is. I can give my opinion. I mean, my opinion is worth probably less than nothing if you're going to put a value on it as far as what South Carolina does with their personnel and their coaching. But again, as far as I'm concerned, sign Will Muschamp to a lifetime contract. Make Jake Bentley the starter until he can't start anymore. He runs out of eligibility, and keep that running back coach dad of his on the staff from here till forever too. I'd be just fine with all of that. Jake Bentley in general, they're named after a costly car. Huh? I don't even know. College football mania, I can't even understand what you're saying, sir. Oregon over Washington, 35-27. Yeah, Washington, I think, is a little disappointing this year so far. I mean, first of all, I think that Washington's a very good team, so I'm not hating on them. But I mean, we've seen the wheels start to come off of Auburn's team. Auburn's not as advertised, I don't think. And of course, they lost to Auburn week 1. I mean, I just don't. Washington has just been underwhelming. I'd expected so far Washington to just completely dominate everybody they played, and actually even beat Auburn, but they didn't. So we'll see. We'll see what happens this weekend. This weekend between Oregon and Washington, that'll probably be the best game in the Pac-12 this year by a long shot, and we'll see who's better. To Goat Watson, do you see Florida or Kentucky winning the East over Georgia this season? No. I don't. No, I don't. I see both Florida and Kentucky losing at least one more game in the SEC, and I think that at the very worst, Georgia will lose one game in the SEC this year, so the head-to-head won't even matter. I mean, let's say Georgia loses to either one of those teams somehow, right? Florida or Kentucky. I think that'll probably be their only loss. And I see Florida dropping another one and Kentucky dropping maybe one or two more. So, yeah. No, I think Georgia wins the East. I'd be surprised if they didn't. What's up, a Pack fan? How you doing, sir? Did I watch the Houston and Dallas game? Yes, sir, I did. Of course I did. Awesome game. Yeah, I know Georgia's playing LSU this week. I went over that earlier. Hound Dog, good afternoon, sir, by the way. I went over that earlier. Listen, there is a chance that LSU can beat Georgia, but I don't know. I mean, again, I still think Georgia wins the East, regardless of what happens this weekend with LSU. I just think they win the East. You know. And then it comes down to them and whoever they play, most likely Alabama in the SEC title game. You know, for a one-game play-in scenario. That's my prediction. Nick Bro, good afternoon, sir. Oh, comments on the Oklahoma loss to Texas. You haven't talked about that yet. Well, I did. I actually broadcasted the game. I think you were here, weren't you? I did. I did a play-by-play for the entire game. So I did a lot of commenting on it during that. But if you want me to recap it, it's very, very simple. Oklahoma's not winning a national title or even competing with anybody in any sort of playoff situation as long as their defense is that terrible. Now, they just fired Stoops finally. I mean, they fired him, what week are we in? 7 weeks too late, or even more than that. They should have fired him last year. But, yeah, so Oklahoma can score with anybody in the country, right? Let's put it this way. Who's got the best offense in the country right now? Alabama. Oklahoma can potentially score with Alabama. You know what the difference between Alabama and Oklahoma is? Alabama can actually play some defense. Oklahoma can't. They can't stop anything. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that Oklahoma lost that game. And now that they're, sort of rebuilding that entire defensive staff, I mean, they fired Stoops. Stoops has been there since Jesus was walking the planet. So I think Oklahoma's season is probably pretty much over at this point. I do. Yeah, somebody agrees with me that Georgia and Alabama in the SEC championship. I do too. West Virginia, they are the most interesting team right now. Them and Texas. So, yeah, we'll see. Well, I need to look that up. When they play, that will be one of the biggest games of the year. They will both more than likely be undefeated going into that game, and obviously the winner of that game takes first place in the Big 12 and holds all the cards. So yeah, West Virginia is a very interesting team. They are definitely a dark horse to make the playoff. Blake Ellis says he thinks that Notre Dame falls to Florida State. That's a hot take. I still do think that Notre Dame will lose one game, and you can pick one of them off their schedule. Any of them. Literally any of them. I mean, Southern California, they could lose to. I don't think they'll lose to Navy. I think they'll beat Navy. Syracuse is a very up and down, streaky team that if they get hot, they can beat you. And Notre Dame better watch out for that one. And that game's the one that's in Yankee Stadium. That'll be a primetime game because it's in Yankee Stadium. They'll make a spectacle out of that, and they might even send game day there just because it's in Yankee Stadium. Who knows? But anyway, that's a trap game for Notre Dame. They better be up for that. Florida State's another trap game. You know what's scary? When you're a team that has everything to lose like Notre Dame. In my opinion, Notre Dame cannot afford to lose a single game because they don't have a conference championship game. And I don't think that's a hot take or anything. I think that's pretty much well received opinion from the so-called experts, is that the lack of a conference championship game does not afford Notre Dame any room. So anyway, what's worse for a team like Florida State that has 5 stars backing up 5 stars and no wins, playing a team like Notre Dame who has aspirations of making the playoff and winning a national title? You don't want to go up against a Florida State team that has nothing to lose. That's a big-time trap game. You're right. So I think they'll lose one of those games. But if Notre Dame goes undefeated, they will be in the playoff, without a doubt. Yeah, I agree. That Syracuse can beat Notre Dame. Can is a big difference from will, but yeah. Bama and Ohio State both won a championship without playing a conference championship. Yes, I understand that. I get that. I'm just telling you, if Notre Dame loses a game, they're not going to make the playoff. So I mean, we can agree to disagree, but that's my opinion, and we'll see. That scenario might very well come up because I still think that Notre Dame will lose one game, and we'll see if they get left out or not. I bet they will. Do I like the Notre? Good afternoon, Zach White. Do I like the Notre Dame uniforms? I'm assuming you're talking about the Notre Dame uniforms that they're playing for that Syracuse game. No, I don't like them. I don't like them at all. I like the classic look. I mean, Notre Dame has an iconic uniform and helmet, and I don't like when they start messing with them. I didn't like it. Do I think Joe Burrow is overrated? That's a good question. He hasn't played great. I'm not so sure how much of that is Joe Burrow's fault, though. I mean, he's a clear upgrade, and it's not even close, from anybody that LSU's had probably since Zach Mettenberger's been there, right? Which is going all the way back to, what, 2010, 11? Anyway, LSU's got bigger problems than we've seen. We've seen the same thing at Michigan. LSU, all we need is a quarterback. All we need is a quarterback, right? Michigan, all we need is a quarterback. All we need is a quarterback. Well, they both get their quarterbacks, and their offense is still lackluster at best. So I don't know if it's Joe Burrow's fault or the overall offensive philosophy and play calling and all that at LSU. He's still better than what they've, anything else that they would get right now. So Anna Anunaga, good afternoon. Anyway, guys, I'm glad everybody's stopped in with me. It's been over an hour. I got to go, unfortunately. If you're new here, please remember to hit the like button. Or if you're not new here, hit the like button anyway. It just doesn't cost you anything. Just hit it, share it on Twitter, Facebook. I will, again, be broadcasting the big game this weekend. And when I say big game, I don't mean where game day is going, because I don't consider that to be the biggest game of the week. I consider, first of all, I think Georgia and LSU is a much more interesting matchup. And quite honestly, it's one that I'd rather see than the other one. But anyway, I'll be doing a live play-by-play and reaction for Georgia and LSU at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. I also will be doing my scheduled live stream this Thursday at 4 p.m. For 1 hour. So also be there for that. I guess that's it. Thank you to all the moderators. Thank you, everybody who stopped in. Thank you for Dennis Wilson for trolling me, meaningless troll statements like you always do. Thank you to everybody that argue with me, including Chad Milligan. I appreciate your passion for not thinking that Etienne's the best running back in the country. I really appreciate that too, sir. Yeah. So, until next time, have a great day. Pigskin Pete. Check it out.